Wondering what will happen in the second last round of Super Rugby? Stay tuned to see my predictions. Welcome back to Skinnybru Rugby, guys. It's the second last round of Super Rugby, meaning it's round 17. Most conferences are pretty much sorted out at the moment. It's only the South African conference that is still difficult to predict who is going to come out on the top. Game 1 is a must win for the Highlanders and the Bulls. The Highlanders are 2 points behind the Chiefs, who are on a bye this week, while the Bulls are in a playoff spot at the moment in third. But if they lose and the Stormers or the Sharks win, they could drop down to 5th place. The Bulls were lucky to get a draw last week. Handré Pollard flew in from South Africa during the week and he rejoins the team for a starting position, while Manie Libbok drops to the bench. He did not have a good game last week, and this is a must win for the Bulls. So I understand the reasoning behind getting the Springbok fly-off back into the team. Other injuries for the Bulls: Galant, Speckman and Skuman has been injured, and they made a bunch of changes for this game. Most notably, the flanker replacement on the bench is a young hooker actually. If the Highlanders win this game, they might get back into a playoff spot, back in 3rd place in New Zealand after their bye last week. They made 6 changes to their team. Most notably, Squire is back for his first game in this season. Imopo, he's back as well after coming back from his injury. He was very good before he got injured. Johnstone is at prop for the injury to Leonard Brown. Tavita Lee and Josh Ioane are also back in the squad after they were rested the last couple of weeks. I'm pretty excited for this battle between Ioane and Pollard. I think they are very similar type of fly half, so it could be quite interesting. I think the Bulls might be able to surprise the Highlanders, but safety, I'd go with the Highlanders by 5. The next one is the Reds versus the Blues. Both teams are probably out for the season, but if a miracle happens, they might still qualify. I think the Blues have a bigger chance than the Reds to get into the playoff spots. They were unlucky last week to draw, but they let the game slip at the end, giving away more possession and actually kicking the ball away, and then at the end getting a penalty which Plummer could not convert. He hasn't been kicking great, but so Black has also not been kicking great. He has come into the starting position this week. Plummer drops to the bench. I don't know if that's a good call though. Plummer, within the Blues backline, does run a little bit better. It's just his kicking is worse than Black's, but Black, he can also not really kick, he's poor as well. Rico Ioane, he has been rested, but the Blues still have a lot of opportunities to score tries. They have dangerous players in that backline. As I said last week, Hegarty at fullback didn't work well for the Reds because their attacking structures and their defensive structures aren't working as good with McGahn at number 10. Well, they did it again this week. McGahn is at number 10 and Hegarty is back on number 15. The Reds basically picked the same team as last week. Maybe they will go a little bit better this week after playing one game with that change of the number 10 and the number 15. But to me, the Blues have the edge in this one. They'll win by 12. Then the Rebels are traveling to an angry Crusaders side. The Crusaders, after they drew the couple of times, they bounced back with emphatic victories. Imagine how angry they are now after their loss to the Chiefs last week. The Rebels, as was the case last year, they aren't ending their season well. They started very well, getting a bunch of wins, and then struggled in the latter part of the season. They are still in a playoff spot though, 4 points above the Waratahs, who will be trying to overtake them this week, since the Rebels probably will lose against the Crusaders. The Rebels desperately want the win so that they can get the gap too wide from the Waratahs so that they can edge a spot in the playoffs. Cooper was great last week for the Rebels though, and he will have to be at his best this week if they want to beat the Crusaders. Karabetti is out this week, but Maddox is still a very good try scorer. This is the last game for the Crusaders for their regular season. They have a bye on next week. They are already in a playoff spot, and if they win this game or actually just get 2 points from this game, they will be number 1 again in the Super Rugby competition. In Crusaders fashion, they choose their best team to widen the gap again between them and the team beneath them, the Hurricanes. The Crusaders are just such a big threat. I do not see them losing in this game. I think they'll win by 16. Then it's a game the Rebels will keep a close eye on. The team just above them in the Australian Conference and the team under them in the Australian Conference. It's the Waratahs versus the Brumbies. If the Rebels lose this next game, the Brumbies can seal the top spot in Australia and have a definite spot in the playoffs or at home in the playoff stages. The Brumbies are on a 4-game winning streak. They have won 6 out of 7 of their last games, but their form on the road is not that good, 2 out of 7. The Waratahs, if the Rebels lose, there is a slight chance that they can overtake the Rebels, but they are 4 points behind the Rebels at the moment. The season at home for the Waratahs, 3 out of 7, which isn't that great, so it doesn't give you a lot of confidence for them for this game. But they will be on a high after beating the Rebels last week. This season for the Waratahs, they have had extremely narrow margins. The biggest loss they've had was by 8 points, and the biggest win they've had is by 11 points. That being said, I think the Brumbies will win by 8. The last 3 games of the weekend all involve South African teams, and it's a must watch for any big Super Rugby fan. It's the Lions versus the Hurricanes first. As I predicted in the who will win the South African Conference, which I will link up here, I think the Lions could lose this one. By the way, most of my predictions have been right except for the Bulls getting a draw last week. The Hurricanes, there's still only 2 losses in this season. Their away record 5 out of 7, which is really good. They beat the Sharks last week by 13 points, but they really dominated that game. Where the Lions, they really dominated the Stormers last week, winning by 19 points. The Lions are second in the South African Conference at the moment. 6 points from the top, but 5 points from the bottom, meaning they need to win if they don't want to be overtaken by anyone else. For the Hurricanes, Fifita has been suspended for 3 weeks. Now their squad depth will be tested. They also have a lot of injuries. Wes Goosen, the most notable one out of those. I think it's 3 guys injured and all sent home. Beauden Barrett was key last week in their victory. He just brought Laumape and Geordie Barrett back into the game. With him, their attacking structures are just brilliant. The last time the Hurricanes lost in Johannesburg is back in 2007. Yankees will be very important for the Lions in this game. He is back in the team after breaching team protocol and being suspended for a while, but they have accepted his apology and he's back in the team, and he can't afford to give pointless kicks this week. He does do that sometimes. I think the Hurricanes will win by 9. Then it is the injury hit Stormers side versus the bottom placed Sunwolves side. The Stormers are at the bottom of the South African Conference at the moment, but they could get 4th place if the Sharks lose their game. If they win with a big margin by like more than 50 points, they could go over the Bulls in 3rd spot, but that's probably unlikely if you have seen the Stormers attack this season. The Sunwolves, they are down and out since hearing that they won't be in the competition anymore from 2021. Their season so far, 2 out of 14 games. They haven't had any victories in 8 games. The Sunwolves usually are in the game till half time, but penalties and missed tackles do cost them dearly. The Stormers have gotten a lot of injuries in recent weeks, most notably Kulisi, Pieter Steftetue, Etzebeth, Visa, and there are more. The team has not been announced yet, but you can expect a few changes and a few unfamiliar faces. The Stormers had a lot of missed tackles last week. If they improve that and get back to their good scramble defense, they will win this game by 15. The last game of the week has the most on offer, the Jaguares versus the Sharks. The Jaguares has the opportunity to seal this season for themselves. If the Lions do win, they need a bonus point to seal the season. If the Lions lose their game against the Hurricanes, they only need 4 points from this game to get the top spot in the South African Conference. The Jaguares have beaten the Sharks 7 weeks ago in Durban by 34 points. If the Sharks do lose this game and the Stormers win, they will find themselves at the bottom of the South African Conference and not in a playoff spot. The Sharks had a pretty poor game last week against the Hurricanes, but they have travelled better this season than they have played at home. But their record is still only 3 from 6 games. Last week they didn't have so much flair with Bosch at fly half, but Bosch has a lot of playmaking abilities, so I'm certain he will be back at 10 this week, and he will bring guys like Mapimpi and Fassi back into the game. For the Jaguares, history is in the Sharks' favour. The Sharks usually win over in Argentina against the Jaguares. In the last 10 weeks, the Jaguares have gotten 33 points, which is exactly the same as the Crusaders in the last 10 weeks. Expect a couple of changes from the Jaguares. They usually play 2 different teams in alternating weeks, or they make a lot of changes, like 7 or 9 changes. For them, Creevy, Moyano, Miotti, Orlando, De La Fuente all have been in great form. For me, the Jaguares will win this one by 12. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button below. Go down in the description if you want to check out the Facebook page or look at one of these videos on my left.